Let's go. Rise and shine, everybody, what we building today. This is the SolCity. I'm always listening to
SolCity Radio.
Got a tickle in my ears.
Coming through your speakers, man, this shit is fluid. If you talk Solana, then I'm speaking fluent. Double down on your investments, that's just how we do it. Celebrate the culture, give the people what they want. Keep the vibes high, even if the mothers won't.
What's up? How you feeling?
I'm
Good
good.
morning.
Yeah, I'm good. Son, so my son likes to jump in our bed like in the middle of the night, every night since he was born, uh, basically. And so he jumped in this morning and was so sweet. He was just like rubbing my face and like, oh, Dad, let me need more cuddles. And he would like cuddle my back. And I'm like, oh, have something at 9. I don't want to be up at 7. Please, no, please. No. But it was good. It was good. No, good morning. I've been a little bit of creating, doing the Twitter stuff. You know,
Doing the Twitter stuff.
the
What is
Twitter
the
stuff.
Twitter stuff?
Influencer.
What is the Twitter stuff?
Yeah,
Uh,
what kind of Twitter stuff are you into, huh?
saying GM to everyone. You know, like, oh my God, GM, such a good morning. Yes. Oh my
Yes,
God.
GM to you, GM
Yes.
to you,
Oh
GM to
my
you.
God. Just let me sleep. Oh,
Wait.
Oh,
So are
I'm
you are you are you always like a GM replier? Do you reply
I
GM every
reply
morning?
to as many as I can. Yeah.
No.
And like I try to do unique replies too, and not just like GM exclamation point, GM. But sometimes.
mhm.
But
I think that you're the only person on earth that does it because you're genuine and sweet, while everybody else are doing it for the algorithm.
yeah, the only thing I do for the algo is I make sure to post like every 4 to 6 hours at least, just to keep injected in there. It's worked.
Yeah,
It's worked. My engagements over the last month have increased. I think it was like 15% or something. And so,
nice.
yeah, I mean, I just want more people to see my stuff. So that's the
Mm.
goal. It's the
So
goal.
you never take a day of break. Like there's never a day where we don't see yeah, where Rez is not posting.
Yeah.
Every
Y'all gonna
four
get the
to six
res.
hours.
Y'all gonna get the res.
Oh, we're getting close to the camera, huh?
Mm,
Oh,
Rez in
hello.
mm,
progress.
mm, 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 mm.
Wait, Rez, what color are your eyes?
Hazel. So in the summer, they kind of get yellow, green with some brown.
And John, yours? Am I the only one with shit brown eyes?
Ooh, Jumpster. Those look like a greenish blue, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
yeah,
Looks like
somewhere in there.
vampire eyes.
Yeah, I need to take a up close. I need to take an HD picture of my eyes. They're really cool. It looks like someone threw like an ink blot. Yeah,
Yeah,
like around the iris. It's really cool.
it's actually an art in itself. The iris, looking at the iris and
Yeah.
also every single human in the world has like their iris is unique. There's no two iris that are the same in the world.
It's
So
so cool.
really interesting.
It's the same thing about toes as well.
Mm.
Res, so happy that you're here, man. Answer the call. This podcast, this is our second time doing it, our second episode, and answer the call podcast is really based to share the untold stories of Web3's creative minds. Sharing those of artists, collectors, builders that are in the space, and also shedding the light on these personalities that we believe that are shaping the future of technology. So we're happy that you're here, man. Thank you for answering the call. Thank you for answering the call.
Ring,
My
ring.
God. Oh my
Answer.
God. I'm like, you love me. You really love me.
Rez.
Thank you, Rez.
Thank you so much, Rez.
Oh, I just do things for people. It's no big deal. It's no big deal.
Oh,
Oh,
I just do things,
I just do
for
things.
you.
yeah.
No expectations. But yeah, that's a great introduction to the podcast. Part of our mission and what we believe can really help, humanize all of these abnormal things that we're doing here and make them normal for the world is by sharing inspiring, relatable, but also educational stories. I'm excited for that conversation today. And I kind of want to start with a little bit of context, right? Because everybody knows you, all right? Your mastermind when it comes to, incorporating all sorts of interesting elements within your artworks. You're sweet, you're kind, you're funny, but that might be just like your fake persona. So who's Rez in real life? Like, what's up with that?
IRL res. Um, well, it's interesting. I feel like so the name that I chose to, I guess, personify myself in the Web3 world, Res in Progress. That in progress part, I think, really encapsulates me. Um, my life has been very interesting. I do not come from like the best upbringing or like the best stuff. And so there's a lot in my life that I have had to reflect on and process and deal with, like we all do. Um, but I think what I do now in my adult life, I'm in my mid 30s now, and I feel like I've only really just discovered how my brain works and how I process information and the depth of my emotional well, if you will, inside of me. And so it's been an interesting thing to grow older and to discover things about myself that I didn't really realize, but I knew that were there, and to integrate those things into my life. And so that in progress part, I think, is so like spot on because I am at my core, my soul, my consciousness, my being, that's always been the same. But the stuff around it, the experiences and the skills and the insights, all of those things are constantly in flux. And I feel like the me that you see before me is just res version 7.4589 dash point whatever. And then I'll keep, iterating until I get to 8.0, 9.0, whatever. Um, I think that's not a, mm, I'm almost there. Like my brain's like, you're almost there. You're almost said it. Um, but yeah, I think that's a great starting point, like the base layer of things.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Um
Interesting.
quickly, what's the latest version then? What's the current running and functional version of Rez?
So if I was going to go into the dev notes, the developer notes of this current version, yes, it's um, supplementing the correct vitamins and minerals and nutrients that I wasn't getting. I've been doing a lot of like blood work in the last like 6 months, and so I found that I was like B12 deficient and magnesium deficient and all these things. So I've been thanks to my spouse who is like best human ever. She's been helping me get my supplementation down. Um, Also being more mindful and calm and whatnot. I've been meditating a lot more than I ever have. I used to have a practice of it, but I let it go. And then more recently, in the last few months, I've gotten back to it. And so I've been more calm, collected. Anxiousness has been at an all-time low. Um, uh, kind of, if I were to relate it to something, it's kind of like the waters have kind of like calmed down on the surface. And so it
Mhm.
allows for more easy navigation across them. Um, yeah, yeah,
It's so interesting.
yeah.
You said it's interesting because I love that you said that you have now found your way of how your brain works and the way it functions. And I think that's something that at some point in our life we are all looking towards that, right? We're trying to recognize more how our brain works and where our thoughts come from and how we transform them into objects and materials, which is a lot of what you do for your art. But I want to ask you a bit more about that. Is that something that you've been always kind of like analyzing through, like looking into how your brain works, or does that have a start at some later point in your life?
Great question. Um, I didn't realize I was autistic until my late 20s, early 30s. And I didn't even realize it um, like with a definition or like a term or anything like that. Um, I just saw that I process things differently. I would get into these like rabbit holes and hyper focus and um, obsess. Oh my God, obsess so hard on things, which is kind of good for the art. So I keep that obsession kind of tamed now. Um, but I didn't even realize these things until very recently in my life, comparatively. So when I look back at like, because I have a really, really sharp memory for a lot of time in my life, and I can remember very vividly being in like my early 20s um, in the U.S. Air Force at 21, stationed in South Korea, and I look back and I'm like, wow, you know, you're just taking in every single piece of stimulation and not doing like not processing it at all. You're just like, whoa, like a big old bobblehead, you know? Um, I, I didn't take time to reflect in my life. And that was, I think, the key component I was missing is I was doing, stimulation seeking, sensory, seeking. But not until recently in my life where I've learned how to reflect and then process and then go, oh, okay, I could do this in a different way. And then again, iterating and upgrading those version point ohs, whatever. Um, so I went into when I got out of the Air Force and I started going to school full time. I went in as a history major, but a psychology minor because I wanted to learn more about the brain and learn more about that. And so I took a lot of psychology classes about behavior and the brain. I even took sociology classes to kind of like get that um, more societal aspect included there. And so it wasn't until then that I actually learned like, oh, these parts of the brain do these things. And wow, that thing that I read in the book kind of relates to me. That's interesting. So it wasn't until more recently in life that I have discovered myself and actually, let me say it in a different way. My whole life, I didn't realize this, but I masked. I hardcore masked. I was a chameleon, um, around certain groups, and we all do this to an extent. But
Mhm.
um, I was very good at it. I didn't not have like multiple groups of friends at the same time because I could just go over here and be this and go over there and be this. Um, but I wasn't being genuine in the younger ages because again, I didn't realize what I was doing. Just wanted to fit in like we all did. But now I don't mask as much. Like I have a hard time like looking at people whenever I talk. And so I used to force myself to look, and then I couldn't think. I couldn't think through, and yeah, it's crazy. Especially now looking at y'all two, I can't think at all.
Okay, let's
So
try it. Let's try it. Let's do a challenge, okay? Everybody open their eyes real creepy and let's
Wide
just have a
open.
genuine conversation.
I'm so
Um,
afraid.
oh, my name is John.
My name is John. My name is
Hi,
John.
my name is John.
Yo, In all seriousness, like,
Yeah.
this is how, and I knew we are gonna get into this conversation with you, and I'm gonna fall in love with you again because I'm seeing this very natural funnel. Like everything you just shared with us, all of that context, that is what for me feels like, as someone who has experienced your art, that is like the foundation of your creations. So let's talk about how, you know, your stories, your realization, your self discovery journey has come to life through your art. And I would like to add an extra component that has helped you channel it as well, is through integrating AI. And then we'll dive deeper into it. So let's talk about your creative process.
Ooh,
Ooh, art.
I love it. Okay, so if we're gonna dive into process, why don't we go to the place where it kind of usually all starts? Um,
Let's do it.
got my little,
Ooh.
Ooh, let's
got my little
go.
tripod. Let's see here. And what's great is this was a non-permanent feature of my house until recently. So in here is my little space where I have all my stuff. Just a little place to start things up. So my process really begins in here, or wherever this was in my house. So my wife's grandma had been living with us for a long time, and then she went to go back live with her daughter, and so my guest room now got freed up, and now I can like have my stuff in here for long-term projects. Yes. Uh, um, my process really begins with discovery, and so whether it's in here, um, picking up random colors and doing random things because I have a song on and I just want to like move around, or if I'm walking around outside. I live on an acre here in the very far North Dallas area, in a very interesting like I'm on this like border between like very hardcore city and then like the rural part of this area, and so I have a bunch of trees and like Texas prairie land in my backyard. So I have a lot of space to roam, which is really, really good for me. I walk outside all the time with my camera. Um, but not really like intentionally trying to take pictures, but when I look around at stuff, my eye gets drawn to something. Shadow on the wall, a crack in the ground, leaves are in a weird like position. So I just take a bunch of pictures, you know? Not necessarily to use them, but that's a way for me to like ingrain in my memory. Like I'm reinforcing that memory by doing that act, kind of like brain stuff there. And so, yeah, it all kind of starts with discovery. And so I will take these discoveries, these things, and then move them back to the digital, back to that big beefy computer I was sitting in front of. Um, I've built computers since I was, wow, since 1993. Built my first computer with my dad. So I was 6, 7 years old at the time. And so I'm very comfortable in the digital world. I grew up in it. Um, And so I take all these things from the physical world, kind of like what our brain does. It takes all this stimulation from the physical world and it does stuff in there to get an output, whether it be what we talk about, the things that we get into, whatever. For me, it it's so strange. Uh, like talking about myself so weird. It's so strange, guys.
It
Um,
is, it is, but you're doing so good.
let's see here. I take all of these things and I bring them into my computer. And what's cool about the computer is the more you learn how to manipulate it, these programs, right? Photoshop, Rebel, which is like a painting app, um, AI, even just like simple like Microsoft Paint. The more you learn how to use those tools, the better you're able to get those things in your head out. And
Mhm.
so that's why like my works, they've they've changed, not in their essence necessarily, but they've definitely changed in how they're presented over time. Uh, ah, can't get all that out. I got that bottleneck right now, you know. There's so much
No,
trying to fit through
you're
the
good. You're
funnel. Yeah,
good. So you're taking these discoveries,
yeah,
right? I feel like that one of the main struggles of being a creative is getting the specific out of your brains. And I feel like with your knowledge and experience with computers, you've managed to find a process that works for you. Um, so first of all, congratulations, because I don't manage to do it 100%. But I do know that you also you created your own model of AI, and you have all of these, other steps in your creative process. So let's talk about your digital process.
sure. So it's really, really interesting because my brain is like closing my eyes right now. I have like a swirl of like colors and stuff. Like it's constantly going, guys. It's very, very weird. Um, I feel like my brain's always seeking stimulation, so it found out that if it stimulates itself, then like, yay, I don't have to like go outside or like open your eyes or anything like that. And so I think that plays like a huge part in all of this because my brain is always like seeking something, seeking some kind of novelty, seeking some kind of way to express something that I don't even know what it's trying to do. I feel like sometimes, like, my meat suit is just an apparatus for getting out that energy that is like inherent within all of us. Like, it's trying to express. And so in the digital space, um, I'll take all those things from the physical world. So I'll take like paintings or like drawings, whatever it is. Like sometimes I'm sitting at the table with my family and I have a white piece of paper and a pen and I'm like just mark making and doodling and stuff. And it'll turn out to be something so cool. And then I'll digitize it and then go, oh, I can use this as a template to paint over with this color palette over here that I saw from outside. So let me rip that color palette from that picture. And so it's always this like, my brain's always tinkering with how to take all these things and like combine it, I guess. And
Mhm.
so I think that's a part of my digital process is taking all of these things, throwing it into the magic box and seeing what happens. Not really, but really, you know? Um, and getting to AI, um, I've been using AI for, gosh, it's 2024 now, over 3 years. Um, I got into these like really cool groups. One group was like on Patreon. This guy who is I can't, I have to pull up his name. Um, he was doing really cool stuff with GAN and Clip. So he had all these Google Collab Pro notebooks that he shared with everyone. We were able to tinker around and give our feedback and give notes and stuff. Um, but it wasn't until Stable Diffusion that I really, really started to um, understand what was going on with AI. Um, there's so many, and we're talking AI that creates images. And so now we're in this world where there's so many different types.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what I like about Stable Diffusion, first of all, it's an open sourced thing. So people are able to tinker with it, and that's like right up my alley. Midjourney is really cool. I don't know as much about it because that's not something that I like really mess with. but I know that each AI has its own like language, if you will. You have to understand or know how to prompt or how to set weights for certain aspects of what's going on in the background in the machine. And so I really like Stable Diffusion because, first of all, there was really helpful people with guides. It's the only way that I could do it at first is I went to Reddit, the Stable Diffusion subreddit. Anyone listening to this, YouTube especially, it is gold. That is how I learned how to download all these programs. Um, oh man, like I would feel so lost without it. Anyways, um, that's where I started, and I have now my own Stable Diffusion 1.5. The model is 1.5, so it's a little older now by date. Um, but what people have enabled me to do is be able to use my own work in with that model and then have it emphasize that work. It's so cool, like being able to pop. So I can now, because I've trained it with so many of my images, so many of my works and whatnot, that I can, if I wanted to, like go super, super low effort. Like it could possibly maybe reproduce something of mine. Like if I said, because you have to tag everything. If I put in like a certain collection name, then it might pop up with something that's similar. It wouldn't be as high def or layered or anything like that, but it would give you like a semblance of what that is. And I find that so interesting. Um, but what I typically use my AI for is I will throw in these images that I've captured by scans or by photographs, and I'll throw it in with the image weight being extremely high, which means that it emphasizes the image over the model. And so I've found this really neat interplay between throwing these images into the AI, and I barely use prompting anymore too. I just use image weights and I use all these different weights for things instead of actually using prompts, which I think is so cool because prompts radically change things. Like if I put in abstract, just that simple word, it you kind of lose it for me and how I use it. It kind of loses the magic because then it's going to all the things that are in the model that I didn't put there that it says are abstract and pulling it in. So I barely use prompts anymore or any prompting to manipulate these things. Anyways, it's all technical stuff, but I'll throw it in there and see what comes out. And sometimes I'll go, oh, that's really cool, and it'll inform like what I do for the future. But I really like keeping it. I don't know. How do I say this? I like keeping the interplay between me and the machine as close to me as possible. Um, but it's not me. It's something that I don't. Let's get into AI. Let's get into like the tool, right? Like, yeah.
Let's do it.
So I have a very interesting relationship with machines because we are biological machines in a very similar way, right?
Hmm.
We have all of this code running all the time. It just happens to be wet code, in this thing, whatever this is. We still don't even know what the hell's going on. But we have this brain that, if we lend ourselves to like the scientific notion of things, then we have these layers that have been evolved on over time. We have our base layer, our reptilian brain, our mammalian brain. And then we have this frontal lobe now that is just skyrocketed in size over the last few million years. And so these things have changed because of our environment. And what's cool is the human brain has changed so much, not necessarily by the environment anymore. It's more so changed by how we apply our mind and the things that we try to learn. The human body and brain is so cool. It, if we put a machine under stress that it's not able to handle, like if you put a 15 horsepower load on an engine that's only rated for 10 horsepower, it's going to break. But if you put a significant more amount of stress than your body can take, then it builds itself up to meet that challenge over time. That's so cool. And so our brains are so interesting in that way, where the more you push it, the more you add to it, the more novel things you get out of it. That's why education is so important, to be able to interact with the world in such a varying, diverse way. If you don't have experience in something, you're not able to engage with those thoughts. The machine is very similar. AI, the more data you put into these data sets, the more you get out of it. And I know that sounds like rudimentary, like, oh, well, no, duh. But like with the language models, for example, like GPT-4, um, outside of the consumer version we have, if we look at the version that like people have tested with and like the organizations have like played with, the more data you put into these data sets, the more complex that machine gets, that AI gets. So it's it's not like, oh, like I uploaded all this chemistry stuff and science stuff to this machine and now it can do science. Well, not necessarily. You just gave it the data. Whenever you give it a problem, like I want to do this, what the AI does is it tries to figure out the best way to do it. And so if solving your question means it has to learn how to do chemistry, then it'll take that data that's in its, so and then you get this output. Like in my head, I know I have this understanding. Sorry if the understanding is not coming out very well. Um, so what I find fascinating with the AI is the more you throw into it, the more diverse things you can get on an output. And so I think that's where I'm at now. I've been using this model, and well, I have several different ones for specific things, but like my overarching one that I've like been using for the most amount of time, it's so interesting like what comes out. And I'm like, well, oh, that's cool. It's not for me. It's not like what I'm looking for, but god damn, where'd that come from? Like that didn't come from like I just threw in these 15 images and now it's giving me this whenever I do this thing. It's just so weird. Um, I'm rambling now. And so,
No, you're
love,
good.
I love this. You're talking about something that I feel should be talked more about. About how similar machines are with humans and how similar it is how we
absolutely.
work. At the end of the day, machines are created by humans, right? And like
Right.
it feels like also with the emergence of AI, a lot of people have kind of like felt separated from AI as like a different entity, like it's a whole different thing that is gonna maybe control humanity, and it's like not. It's totally the opposite, right? Like we are being the
For
ones
now.
who have created this, and we are kind of like being responsible of these use. One thing that you were talking right at the beginning, you were talking about how over time through your creative process you have been immensely curious about using all of these different applications that you can use in your creative process to throw a bunch of things and see what you can do with all of them together, right? Um, and specifically, I would like to talk about AI because we actually have received a question from our audience, somebody called Bibu.
Vibu,
Oh,
Vibu, we have a
oh,
fan question from Vibu. Oh
Bibu,
my god, Vibu.
Bibu, Bibu.
Vibu, Vibu.
Bibu was asking a question recently, which is about where is the line that we cross between what is an acceptable use of AI in art and
ooh,
what is where is that line drawn?
that's a really interesting question. I'm gonna have to take a sip of water for this one.
I'll
Me
take
too.
a sip of water as well. I love how we all have our water ready and none of us wanted to take a sip to not like intersect with the recording or conversation. We're all so polite,
I
but we
actually
just
took a
wanted
sip
to
while
survive.
I actually took a sip while listening.
And
Really?
action. My spicy take is there is no line. There is no line. I feel like acceptable AI use will change depending on the context. And so if we're talking someone from the MoMA comes and is asking, or someone from SolCity Radio, or someone from Foundation, so you may end up getting different answers from those different contexts. And so someone who sits in front of their computer and prompts and takes that raw image and posts it up um, on their account, Facebook, whatever, awesome. You're doing the same thing and trying to sell it. Cool. I personally have no, like, I don't have any feelings about the things that people, like how people make things or try to put them out, whatever. For me, it's about, do I connect with it? Is there intentionality? Is there a story? I don't have to even have the story in front of me, but did you approach this with the intention of creating something, uh, at least with like some kind of starting point from yourself, you know? If you're just hitting like chaos or random on the AI, well, yes, you're creating something, but I don't know. Human beings are all about meaning and about attaching meaning to things, whether we like it or not. Your brain's constantly attaching meaning to every interaction, every second and moment, um,
Yeah.
to what's going on in your life. And so I don't think there's any line. Now, in the world that we're in the space that we're in, I feel like the line is simply just about transparency. And if I were, for example, if I were an artist that says, I do XYZ thing, like what I do this process where I take all these photos and do all these things and scan it and AI and my process. But if I was actually just back here, just prompting all of this stuff and then putting it out, ugh, that's extremely disingenuous, first of all. And then second, I don't know, like if I if we had that insight into what someone does and we were able to see what they do behind the scenes compared to in public, then we would be able to make that determination. But we don't have that information, right? All we see is what people post on Twitter and what people post up and what people take to galleries and whatever. And so for me, I don't feel like there's any line, but for me to invest myself into it, not monetarily, that is a very on the side table conversation for the monetary side, but for sharing and for conversing and sharing of ideas, I don't see any line, but there has to be an air of transparency. Just
Hmm.
just bottom line. I just kind of want to know the origins of things because then my brain is going to attach meaning differently. And so if you're just a prompt warrior, well, some people are, and some people have, oof, oh, and that is an art in of itself, developing certain prompts and then able to iterate and get exactly what you're looking for out of the AI. That's awesome. That's so cool. So many people can do that in our space, and that it's really neat. I I just like the transparency. I don't think there's any more to that than that for me. And I don't have to have your life story. Like, just tell me you used AI or not. That's the simple. Just
Yeah.
let me know. And that doesn't change. Like, oh well, that makes you a now I know you can't paint because I know you're using AI, or now I know you can't. Those are not things that go through my brain. That's a interesting. that adds more depth and layers to the conversation than, okay, well, someone's doing acrylic on canvas. Awesome. That's really cool. Now I can put myself empathetically, put myself into that person's shoes. Wow. How did they get that stroke? How did they get that light contrast there? Same thing with AI. If someone's using it in their process, I'm thinking to myself, where the F did they use it? How did they use it? And so that makes the work so much more, I don't know, interesting. Instead of it just being a 2D thing, now it becomes this 5D object where you have time and you have all this like interdimensional energy. I'm just kidding. You just have all these layers that get added on top of it, which make it even more interesting. And so I think I've answered the question maybe sufficiently. Yeah, transparency I think for me is the
Yeah.
um
Well, I think that your answer is so relatable in so many aspects because what you're giving is a lot of like value for artists who are either scared of AI or want to try, or artists that are using AI in their process, but you have almost a whole like industry of people who are like, I don't like AI. Like that's weird, right? Like there's two sides of each coin. At the same time, I feel like you're giving a lot of context to collectors, and also you answered Vibu's question, and Vibu is kind of clueless, so every podcast we're gonna try and answer one of his questions. I have a question for you, and we're gonna jump into a different topic, but it's very attached to you because you and I talked a few days ago, and I told you like when I experience you, I experience a very giving personality, and I think that really comes into play with how
sure.
you share your art and how you sell your art as an artist. So I think this would be very valuable for other artists to hear as well. Um, I find that you have had consistency in pricing. I'm interested to know about your pricing strategy and how that's beneficial for you for the longer term. Like, how does your pricing strategy reflect your giving personality? What's that?
So I am thank you for this question because it's actually a really important one. I think it was September or October of 2023. I actually made a post about this. Um, so I entered the space in November 2021. Well, no, excuse me, as Rez. I was actually minting before that, just under a different like wallet and moniker. I was just throwing up like these like moving gifs and like mandalas and like just nothing really artsy fartsy. Just like, oh, I'm minting something. This is cool. But in November 2021, that's when I like made a serious effort to enter the space, and as Rez. I did so on Tezos, and it's interesting. I think I sold my first work for 7 Tez, which back then was like $30, which was like for me, I was like, oh my God, like what? And even now, it doesn't matter like if it's an addition or whatever, my mind explodes every time someone collects from me. And we'll get to why, I guess, later. You're asking about pricing. I feel like the bull runs have been have had a very strange effect on perception, um, where you have these certain artists or certain things going for a certain price. And I mean, I can never speak to whether anyone deserves to get paid a certain amount or not on their work. It's not for me to decide. It's for the person selling the art and for the person buying it, right? Like I have no like feelings about it other than like that's like, man, I could, I could, I could pay off this like thing over here with that. Like, you know, like we have those thoughts. But for me, especially late 2022, early 2023, that's when my work really started to gain like real traction. I started to go more deeply into AI like late 2022 and like really integrated it into this like process of like back and forth collage craziness that I kind of uh, set up the basis for back then. And so whenever I was pricing my works then, it was more so on a like intuitive, like, okay, I see other people making stuff similar to me. I'm going to try it out at this level. And here's where like I have maybe just small regrets, only small because I think everything is a learning lesson. I feel like I tuned into that feeling of up only that everyone kind of had, right? That,
Mhm.
okay, you know, I've sold this collection for this much. Now I'm gonna sell for this much now. And that was just like so defeating. Even though I was making art that I really loved and I was like doing this thing and it was an explosion of emotion and consciousness, the pricing aspect of it was so like, so, I don't know. I felt like it alienated a lot of people from being able to connect with me. And I'm seeing all this in retrospect. It alienated people from being able to collect my work, which my goal entering all of this is art as a catalyst for connection. That was my like first tag on my bio, art and connect. Like that was my that's my thing. And I feel like the rush of it all, not just for me, but like everyone, and I just feel like everyone in the space had this like mental mind virus that we were all infected with at the time. And once that bear really just got really gritty, you come out of it and you're like, it's kind of like coming out of an acid trip. Kind of like, holy, what? Like, holy, like, you know, like for real.
Yeah.
And so I made a post about this. I was like, I feel that I I didn't do anything wrong because it wasn't wrong, but I did something that went against what my sole core purpose of all this was to connect. And so I made a very stark decision. Like I'm not going for all-time highs and I'm not going for that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm going to price my work in a way, this is how I said it, in a way that enables me to connect with people. And so fast forward to now. Now I have my drip channel, which allows me to make work. And yes, am I being compensated for it? Sure. But that compensation comes from like that connection. Like the more people I connect with, the more people will subscribe to my channel. And I think a droplet is like less than half of like a penny, like a cent.
Yes.
Yeah.
US dollars, everyone. Okay, US dollars here. So like it's not a place where I'm like trying to make bank or get rich. I mean, sure, I would love to be able to not worry about money, but that is a really cool avenue that I now have because now I can connect with people and a majority of them, whenever I get a thanks or whenever I get like a message on my Telegram bot, it's always like a thank you and I look at their profile and their profile has like 8 droplets in their wallet. And so I know that they're probably getting those droplets on the free claim. And so I'm literally enabling people to collect my art for free. And then I get to connect with them. I get these Twitter DMs. Like my dream has come true in that way, where I'm getting to share my art with a lot of people and connect. But I also have, so I think I've developed different channels or outlets for my art, right? I have the drip, the drip.
The drip.
That's-
Uh, and then I also have like this really cool experimental playground that is Solana, or Ethereum or whatever, right? These places that have these kind of different tools to be able to enable me to share my work, or Tezos, which I haven't minted on in a while. I should probably dust off that wallet and get over there, maybe. But even that, like that that thought that just came out of my brain wasn't really mine because I don't really care where I met. That was like a wow, I just regurgitated something I've seen for like 3 years on my feed because I don't really feel that way. Like, I just want to post my shit up and just talk about the art.
Yeah.
Let me have it.
How do you feel about all the people like me that paid a lot of money before you realized that you want to connect with people with lower prices? Because I got rugged twice by
Sure,
you, and luckily we became friends beforehand,
sure,
right? A little bit beforehand.
sure,
But that still burns a hole in my pocket.
sure.
So
That's a
what is your plan on repairing our connection?
that's actually an extremely fair question, and I know you're like halfway like
No,
like
I'm 100% joking.
yeah.
Like
No, no,
when
no,
I acquired,
but I think you asked a very, very valid question because you're going to have different people who have different
sure,
intentions for the space, right? Like some people are here for art and they happen to have some money to be able to collect. They're just here for the art. They don't have money. Great. Um, or whatever in between, right? I feel
yeah,
like so I think my all-time high like US dollar amount that I sold for one work was like I think it was like 700, $800. And now that same maybe similar work that I'm actually putting more effort more into my works now than I was then. Just my process has become so much more layered and I'm selling for less. And to answer your question, how can I how does that relationship work when my past works were selling for a certain amount and now they're selling for the amount that they're selling for? I feel like that question is best answered by saying, I am not going anywhere. This is my life. It wasn't my life. It wasn't until I discovered that I absolutely live and breathe this stuff. So yeah, now that's it's my life. Creating has always been a part of my life, but I did it as like a hobby. And so it's different than doing it intentionally to explore, discover thoughts like someone who's a writer, someone who's built whatever. It you build upon your past. You build foundations of understanding within yourself, and you iterate on that until you find novelty, and then I don't know if that's how I see it at least, and then you go into that rabbit hole that's actually connected to other rabbit holes and an infinity fractalating path. Like like that's the cool shit. But to answer your question, it's about being I don't want to say about being here and showing up, not necessarily to the space, because
yeah,
I feel like that's such a small community and microcosm in the grand scheme of the human experience, or our ability to connect. We use these tools because it's the easiest way to connect with the most people at once, and that's extremely valuable. But then your brain can't process all that noise, so you have to like find a way to cut it down. And that's why I connect with like Soul City Radio because that's a smaller community of like-minded people who are all just ready to party, or the drip droppers who are now I'm a part of, and we have our own little small groups, and then I have abstract groups, and I have all these other groups. And so, wow, I'm getting off on a tangent. To answer your question, I think in a more specific way is I would have to talk to those people and say, let's understand the context of those times and understand like we made a we made a transaction together. Essentially, like if you want to call it a contract, we agreed to this at that time. And yes, now that is
Hello?
Hello?
Rez? Rez?
Yeah,
Hello?
yeah,
Hello?
that's my day job work phone. So I put it in the calendar like I got a call, guys, don't call me. And it's past the time that I put in the calendar, so I need to put that on silent. Um, no, it's I, I I I would commiserate with the person if they asked me that in a genuine way. Like I would commiserate, saying like, yeah, I totally understand. I think we were all caught up in the zeitgeist of the times, and
Yeah.
I it's weird because I've had to answer this question to people like, why do you value your work the way that you do? And now my answer as someone who has learned from all of this, I feel like in my own way, is I now price my works in order to connect because I want people who feel something um, to be able to, if they want to, have the ability to take that with them, they can. And, sideline here, some people who I have had very long term, strong connections with who talk to me about the art, talk to me about themselves, their lives. We make a genuine connection. There will be times where I know they can't afford something and they might just end up getting a free piece from me in their wallet, just a little sneakily like, hey, check your wallet. Hope you have a good day. And then we get to talk about that. And that little acted as a catalyst for, more conversation and more connection. Um, and those instances, I know those people are not necessarily looking to flip my stuff because, newsflash, you can't really flip my stuff because people,
Yeah.
you really can't because people make these connections with these works, and those connections sometimes are singular. Sometimes no one else can have the connection to that piece except for the one person that did. Like you with my Beyond Human piece that you collected a long time ago.
I cannot let go of that piece
That piece is
because
so
there's
special.
times where you go and you look at your collection and things that you've collected, and like there's something about reselling a piece and putting it on secondary market that I would consider as an act of support
Right.
to the artists that you
Sure.
collected. But there's some pieces that I cannot let go with, and I appreciate the response because I feel like um each individual has their own pricing strategy, each individual has their own collecting strategy, and I think it would be a really nice note to end the conversation with, unless John, you have another question. But this was a very, very valuable response because I bet that there's artists that, like, I feel like I reached like the 10, 15 soul mark, and this is what I've been selling with like a few months ago, and now it's not moving, but I want people to have my art because I want to create those conversations, but I'm afraid to put lower prices. And that's actually what I've been doing lately. And I'm like, oh my God, I just want, just like have it, take it, right? So I think this shows, you also show people that, like, hey, it's possible. It has to has, these intentions, these genuine intentions behind those pricing strategies. And also you gave some solid advice of like how to have that conversation in case someone who's less knowledgeable about pricing strategies from the artist side comes at you and be like, yo, what's up?
I want to piggyback into something that you were talking about that I think this is something that I've been thinking a lot about throughout the past few months. And with like, there's some dangerous things in our ecosystem that I consider dangerous sometimes, which is, for example, like that bullish mode of like being, oh, we're going only up, only up, only up. Or like there are sometimes tweets that can become dangerous, like for example saying one soul equals one soul. Oh, if I have sold for 30 soul 8 months ago, I have to keep selling at 30 soul, and like 30 soul now is not the same as 30 soul 8 months ago. So then there's also comments like, oh, being a maxi in Solana or being a maxi, and you've been a person that you've gone as well, not only in the space but also in life. You have moved from different locations, you have moved as well from different jobs, and you have always been like very curious still, and having that always sense of curiosity. You have moved as well from Tesos to Solana in the space, And I want to ask you, how important is it for you, the where, the location, the setting, when you are seeking for that art as a catalyst, as a form of connection? If there's any importance in that where, how important is that for you?
My so here's what I would love to see the space move towards. If we and the space is such like a weird thing because it's like what the hell is that? Yeah. My idea of the space may be different than anyways, we can get into that. Recently there was a post made by one of the Twitter profiles that has a crypto punk on there, so they have, naturally a lot of followers and stuff. They posted, I think, something about location of where the art is matters. And they used this example of this violinist who was playing like in a subway. And they're like the number one violinist in the world, and they were using like $1 million violin or whatever. And they recorded this person playing for like a certain amount of time, and no one really stopped to take a listen. And they were playing like one of the most technically hard, like it was like all of these things, and then there wasn't really like any acclaim. No one like stood around just like videoed them, or like no one, there wasn't like people paying attention. But then this person can sell out a giant theater of 10,000 people, at like $500 a pop for a ticket. And so that I think was an interesting thing to see. But I feel like I don't know. I feel like those examples are such like extremes, and we live in a world where we think it's about extremes or about polar opposites like right, left, up, down, whatever. I think most of what we do is kind of like a mixture of it all. Intention, emotion, where you're at, the amount of light that's going on, what time of day is it, what kind of brain chemistry you got going on, right? And so I don't think there's a good answer to that, John. I think that I think that for some people, location of things matters. Sure,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, if I'm trying to go to work and I'm like in the subway tunnel and I'm trying to make it to my job on time, and I hear and my brain detects music, well, my brain's gonna go, well, you don't need that shit. You gotta go to work. And so it doesn't fully integrate it and appreciate it and reflect, all those things,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of like the I don't know, the aperture of a lens, right? Whenever we are in certain environments or in certain places, we are using maybe certain lens types. Maybe we're only bringing in a certain amount of light. We have different ways of interacting with those spaces. And so I know I'm for sure if I'm driving, I'm not trying to read every single billboard because I like to be alive, right? So I think in some respects, and this is highly dependent on person, their brain, their experience, that location of something matters. Now, in our space, you mentioned like dangerousness and, not so goodness. I think that there is a lot of casino gambling, uh, you know, trying to flip flapjacks and flip pancakes on top of one another, right? Like the whole time. There are some
Yeah.
people who their sole intention is to utilize these JPEGs. Let's just boil it down: JPEGs, GIFs, MP4s, whatever, as a vehicle for investment. And more power to you. That is just the fabric of humanity. If humanity is a blanket, there's going to be some threads in there that you value different things. And so for some people, it matters. Like some people
Yeah.
will not mint to Solana because of the um, whatever the, oh, that's the poor chain. I've heard that. You guys have heard that, I'm sure. And that is a knock on the low fees. And so, like, like I understand why they're saying that because they're trying to protect the bag. Cool. Got it.
Yeah.
And that's fine. More power to you. I see you and hear you loud and clear. But we are experienced. And so whenever we see those actions, we know the context. We can at least read between the lines most of the time. So many people here now are new. And so they don't have that context. They don't necessarily understand, like, oh, this person is promoting this work or posting this work in this certain way. Oh, that's great. That must this big account's posting it. Oh, that must be popular. Well, or oh, this person is saying this about XYZ person. Well, there are intentions behind what people do, and some people their intentions is to make money, and some people their intention is to connect. Some people's intention is to do both. Um,
Yeah.
and so the answer is for some people, the space in which these actions happen do matter. And that's a perfectly valid viewpoint. Everyone's allowed to live their own way. But what I think that does is I think that limits us. I think placing limitations on our ability to connect with others and by extension ourselves, that that dampens the ability for us to have this human experience that is full of these things that maybe get lost if you're hyper focusing on those aspects. Um,
Yeah.
I personally don't give a where my work goes. Don't
I
care.
love that.
I
And
care now. I
I
do
love
now. I do care um, about if someone does connect. How can I most easily do that? And so I had a collector, for example, a while ago. They're like, I love this. Can you mint it to Tezos? Yes, I freaking can. I will
Mhm.
create that new object collection. Absolutely, let's do it. Or, hey, can you do it over here? Or, hey, can you hold on to that? And can you mint it at this time because I won't have? Yes, absolutely. And so for me, where my work goes is more so about the the maybe the request that someone makes. Like I think next month I have two things I'm doing on Ethereum, which okay, let's go. Um,
Yeah.
I I
And
But I
understand.
think that that really reflects your personality, right?
yeah,
Because I think that when it comes to your self discovery journey and when it comes to you as a giving person and the fact that you want to allow this very consistent level of accessibility to your work, because at the end of the day, for you, art is a catalyst for connection, this all makes sense. And I think that we've had such a beautiful conversation. I think people are now going to even connect with you on such a deeper level. And yeah, I mean, we got 1 hour and 20 minutes of like absolute gold with like extra 5 minutes of dancing. So, Rez, I mean, thank you for answering the call. One last thing that I want to ask you is what's like one big thing, one big tip, right? That you can give to artists, collectors, builders watching this
Wow,
that you
a tip, a tip trick, um,
just the tip, just the tip though.
just to see what happens.
Just to see what happens.
I've got it. So I taught high school social studies for 7 years. Um, ninth graders, 10th graders, 11th, 12th, all that. And the thing that from the first year that I always, and I don't like to say it this way, but that I preached, bah, I don't like that word, but that I overemphasized as many times as I could the value of empathy and how powerful that skill is to learn. I call it a skill because loving someone, you can feel love in your heart, but how does that translate into actions and words and things? And so these are skills. These are skills that you build upon over time. Empathy is such a powerful, overarching, over-encompassing skill that a lot of people have not been given the ability or the space to learn. And if you do learn it, you may not necessarily have the ability to practice it. A lot of people's lives are caught up in high anxiety states of fight or flight. And so it's really hard to be empathetic to others whenever you're in that. And a lot of our world, people are hungry, people have domestic issues, people whatever, right? Like issues from where they live. And so it's hard to be empathetic whenever you're in a constant state of fight or flight. If your needs are taken care of, like a lot of people in this space, more or less, right? Like you have people, we have, hopefully water, some food, maybe some type of shelter, those base needs, right? If we have those base needs taken care of and we're able to create art and share it with one another, or if you're a collector, especially as collectors who have maybe the monetary thing, maybe a little bit more wrapped up, bow on top of it than others, then you have these needs met, you have the mental space in order to practice that skill. And why do I even harp on this? Empathy, that ability to place yourself in someone else's shoes, as they say, to be able to connect with something that is not you. And that's the basis of it. That is it's a superpower. It is an absolute mind-boggling superpower that can honestly change the trajectory of your mental state and your life. The the ability to increase, if you increase your ability to interact with things in an empathetic way, you're able to reflect on them and understand them more. You maybe interact with those things, and especially people, um, maybe with a softer, kinder heart.
Yeah.
And I know our world is, it's, our world has been crafted to elicit things from us, to utilize our labor, to utilize our mental power, to utilize um, uh, our money, our resources, and time, and for that to funnel into the hands of maybe a smaller group of people, right? Like capitalism, the world over is just kind of it's an icky thing, but it's a thing that we have to live in. Capitalism itself decreases empathy. How capitalism is utilized now, right? Like if you actually look at um, The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith's work, he was actually a philosopher. And
Yeah.
his philosophy was actually more so about utilizing our capital in order to help other people who don't have it. It's wild how that's been perverted, in my opinion, perverted in our modern day. And
Yeah.
I get it. I really, really understand the why people do what they do. And that's fine. Like I can't change it. But what I can
Yeah.
change is how I deal with it, right? And I deal with it by trying to keep my empathy levels turned up to 11. Because
Hmm.
what that does is it allows me to look at these things which, yes, break my heart, but not necessarily to focus on the perpetrators of it, but to focus on the victims and say, how can I help those victims? And I'm using very strong language here, but I think the over encompassing thing is
Yeah.
empathy is so important for every part of your life, and you may not even know it.
Yeah.
And if you are able to practice it, do so. And once you do and you have that become a routine thing, it just becomes your norm, your base level. And then you get to go to the next level, right? Um,
Yeah.
What is that next level?
My dream is to become a disembodied energy and not have to be attached to physical form so that I can, first of all, not feel my back and my knee and my wrist and all these pains that I have.
Yeah.
That'd be great. But to also disattach to the millions of years of evolution that my operating system runs on that is not me, right? Like so much
Yeah.
of me is not me. And I
Hmm.
think empathy allows me to be able to live in this meat suit in a much more sustainable way where the vibes are not necessarily like this, they're like this.
That's a powerful message, Rez. I think that, when it comes to empathy and love and kindness, compassion, we need more of that.
Rez, thank you so much for today. I really love all of the conversations that we've had already before, and it's always very inspiring to read your posts as well. I think like you're one of those people that I always look up to, like to just encourage and foster conversations that can really bring some good light into the space. And I love how you also closed the podcast again. And hell yeah, man, we're all about unconditional love in Soul City as well. So yeah, man,
Yes!
appreciate you.
You guys are great.
You are great.
You're great.
I I still find it very strange that people want to hear what I have to say. I find that strange just because I'm this is so weird. I have learned how to like observe myself being myself.
Mhm.
Like, like in that meditative state where you're observing your thoughts and you're observing your body from like almost like a third party, like that third person view. Like that third person view me is looking at the me talking. And then that third person me is like, all right, this is kind of cool,
Dude,
like
I love talking to you. You didn't
what's
even
going on?
notice, but I was about to cry like 10 times during this conversation. And I'm getting really emotional now. We're gonna cut this off.
I am so I'm so appreciative for the comfort you feel in speaking with me to share that with me. That means like a whole hell of a lot. And to you, Jam, as well. I know we all process things differently and how they come out is different.
Mm.
And what's cool about y'all is y'all just accept and vibe, right? Accept and vibe. And I'm really thankful, and I know I'm a little bit older than you guys. I don't necessarily see that as like a hierarchical thing. I just see that as I just have more experience in these things, and if y'all don't have that experience, then I'm happy to share it. And that's how I don't know. I guess that's the teacher in me. Um, so yeah, I mean, y'all are my friends, and I appreciate y'all. I truly say that with like real sincerity. I see y'all as my friends, and we're also work colleagues as well, in a way. But I appreciate y'all's friendship. Y'all are
I
awesome,
love you.
and
Uh,
the love big
Oh,
big
we
time.
guys are super close to the camera? Like, oh my god! Wait, what?
Coming through your speakers, man, this shit is fluid. If you talk Solana, then I'm speaking fluent. Double down on your investments, that's just how we do it. Celebrate the culture, give the people